can do the intro.
I can do the intro.
Yeah, you the regulator.
I cannot do the intro the way that Ali does it. But hey, welcome to Let's Be Frank.
How's it?
Yeah, it's obvious that it's not the usual duo. Welcome, Jason.
Thanks.
Thanks for standing in.
Yeah. I didn't stand in. I got pushed in.
You got pushed in.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need a bit of a nudge. But anyway, so today we are going to chat about perseverance.
Yeah. So it's a topic I wanted to sort of touch on. Do have about 3 little words of notes, just about like perseverance in various forms. You know, whether it's physical work and learning and like milestones and your goals and how to make sure that you carry on persevering and like some of the tools to use to push through those barriers when sometimes you might want to give up or but also the other point that came in that I thought about this morning that I said to you now that I couldn't remember, but now I do. So like perseverance, and something that we've spoken about before is that persevere or pivot stage. So whether it's again in like physical work that you're doing with training and stuff like that, or learning or whatever it might be, something like so just want to touch on that.
I think that's a great point that you raised there is and maybe not something that we often consider when it's something outside of a work type goal of whether we persevere or pivot. And I think what we used to is do I give up? So I start a training regimen and then this doesn't work for me or whatever, and then I give up. Instead of what you should be doing is pivoting. Should look at what you should change to bring the results that you want. So that's a great way of looking at it for non-work or business related things.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously we've been looking at it with the like growth hacking thing, and that's quite a big principle or something with
Absolutely.
the growth hacking thing. But yeah, I definitely think it can be applied to multiple other aspects in life. And I think, like you say, the training or something like that is quite a good example of something where people would usually give up or say, it's not for me, I'm not getting the progress, I'm just going to try something else, or I
ran a kilometer and I haven't lost a kilogram yet, so this is not working.
Or they say you should do a 5k in half an hour or something like that, and I didn't do it the first 10 times, so now I'm not going to do it anymore.
Instead of pivoting to something that gives you more satisfaction and for whatever reason brings the results that you're after. But I mean, the key is the perseverance. So what would be a definition of perseverance?
I don't know what the Oxford or the dictionary thing would be, but for me, I feel like it's pushing on even when you don't want to anymore, or navigating obstacles that are standing in your way of getting to that end goal. Yeah,
I think that's a good summary of whatever the Oxford definition would be. But for me, I hear perseverance equals discipline times problem solving. But something like that, because you need that discipline to say, well, okay, cool, this is what I committed to, and I have to have that discipline of, if I'm going to do X, I'm going to do it daily, for example, then make sure that I do it without fail. And then if I do encounter any obstacles, is look at the ways in terms of how do you overcome those obstacles. So discipline is key, I think. looking at, I often see or encounter that people will make a decision and say, this is what I want to do. Then for whatever reason, a couple of obstacles come in their way, and then say, oh, well, I said I'm going to do it every day. I couldn't do it yesterday because of whatever reason, and therefore, kind of drop off.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the discipline to get back to it. Well, you know what, that was a minor setback. The fact that I failed at something yesterday doesn't mean that the complete mission must be aborted.
Yeah, 100%. Because I mean, you're always going to run into those failures, but I think you got to use those failures as either a learning curve or learning tool rather.
Yes.
Or take them into account and say, all right, I didn't reach this milestone, so now I've got to get to that next one a little bit quicker. I'm going to have to work a little bit harder to get to that next one.
Yeah.
Or, like you say, also go, minor setback, let's keep on pushing. I mean, we see it happen with work every now and then. Have something that comes up in a project and sets our deadline back. So, okay, cool, work around it and then push forward and we go forward to the new deadline. Or we got to put in a couple of extra hours and get the stuff done by the committed deadline, I suppose there's two ways of attacking it.
Look, for me, it's one of the reasons why we work the way that we work is look at self-directed teams as far as possible, and then obviously within those teams, the individuals to a large extent are self-directed.
Yeah.
In terms of, we make the commitments every day. What am I going to deliver today? And then report back in terms of, did I meet my objectives for yesterday? If I didn't, what I think happens, I don't want to use the phrase naturally, but what happens too often is that in a team or in a work setting,
yeah,
it becomes almost too easy to come up with reasons why I didn't achieve my objectives today.
Yeah, well, the stuff that I committed to yesterday took me a little bit longer, so unfortunately, the other piece is going to take. Well, I didn't get to it yesterday.
Or there's also a little bit of, well, it's not my fault. It's not my fault, and not taking the ownership.
Yeah.
And the responsibility that goes with it. Whereas if it's something out of work, or in the example that you mentioned in terms of a training regimen and so on, you can't blame anybody else for that.
Yeah.
But it's also a little bit easier to get away with it because you don't necessarily have that external accountability.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're only accountable to yourself.
You're only accountable to yourself, and therefore.
And I mean, you might not have told someone your goals or whatever they may be. It's only yourself. So, like you say, I mean, but in some ways that's worse though. Letting yourself down than someone else. But I mean, that's a whole nother story, I think.
Well, ultimately, whether it's something that you do individually or whether you're part of a team, ultimately. It is yourself that you're letting down.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
So what are some of the tools that you find that are effective in terms of helping you persevere?
For me personally,
well, what are some of the suggestions that you think we as a team can apply? So
again, I mean, I'll go back to that thing about failing at something. I've found in the past, it is something that gets to me quite often. I found it's one of my downfalls is that sort of fear of failure, but slowly but surely getting to that point where going, okay, cool, failure basically means I'm making some kind of progress. If I failed something, I've moved towards that goal and maybe I didn't meet it there, but it's not the end of the world. So I definitely think that's something that you can use and sort of take those failures and take whatever lessons come out of them and be able to move them forward, for the next milestone or for the next project or whatever it may be.
It is the only way that we achieve meaningful goals.
Yeah, 100%.
By failing and learning from those things and moving on.
Yeah, but another thing that I've also, it's something I forget often, but I've actually got it sort of written on my chest, is, do not fear of growing slowly, fear only of standing still. And it's some Malaysian proverb or whatever it might be. But I think that's also quite important, sometimes you can be going forward very slowly, but as long as you're not standing still and then it's okay, you're making some kind of progress, whether it's one step forward at a time. I think that's something that we've got to remind ourselves of quite often. It's not always going to be full speed ahead. Sometimes it does take time to get towards those goals or milestones or whatever it may be.
I think we generally optimistic in nature.
Yeah.
We encounter it in the workplace. We encounter it quite a bit, where people are over optimistic in terms of how long it'll take to finish a piece of work.
Yeah.
And that's, I think it's part of the default of being human.
Optimism.
Yeah. If you weren't, if you weren't optimistic,
then we got a problem. Yeah.
Then we got a serious problem, and then we wouldn't have been. Yeah, I think we would still be hunter-gatherers, dodging tigers, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that optimism, and in my opinion, that optimism leads to the fact that we take on things that we don't necessarily know how to achieve in exactly the time frame that we set out to achieve them. But the point that you made about as long as you're not standing still, that is so valid. As long as you keep moving at a reasonable pace, at a pace that once you figure out, okay, well, I thought I could run 10 kilometers an hour. Well, that's actually, turns out I can only run at 5 kilometers an hour. The point is to keep running.
Yeah.
And not stop.
Yeah. Well, even if you have to get down to a walk or crawl at that time, but you're going forward, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a famous Martin Luther King quote about, if you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. Something to that effect, of getting that point across. But it's extremely important to kind of take those lessons out of it, learning about yourself.
Yeah.
Learning about the team that you work with. Kind of understanding where people's strengths are.
Yeah.
Playing towards that. If it's an individual thing, figure out where your strengths are around that, and the commitment and the perseverance. I've got a number of examples in terms of, where I've seen benefit of just persevering and some of the things that I put in place. For some of my personal goals, like I make notes on a daily basis.
Yeah. Got your little book that you,
No. I use an app now, because it's always there. The device is always with me, and I can log those things, and it's easy for me. And there's a record. It helps to keep me honest in terms of, if I skip the day, it doesn't just fade away into the past. It's always there. The gap is there.
Yeah.
So
do you go back on those things and read them from, let's say, a month ago or something like that?
I sometimes do.
Yeah.
I sometimes do. If I want to measure how far I've come, then I'll go and say, well, okay, cool. Where how did I do a month ago?
Yeah.
Or a week ago? or 2 weeks, or whatever the case may be, you know. And that's a great way for me.
Yeah.
It works for me to help me.
Yeah, because I think it's another part of it. Like so, what we're talking about, you know, perseverance and whatnot. You must always remember that at some point you were behind, and you've got to this point where you're at now.
Yeah.
So I mean, I said to you, I was reading that David Goggins book, and sort of towards the end of it, he's talking about he was lying there in his bed, thought he was going to die because you know, he had some problem. It ended up being because he hadn't stretched in however many years. But besides the point, he was sitting there and he going, you know, okay, might die now, it's alright, I'm happy. And he started looking back at where he was, you know, 10, 15 years prior.
Yeah.
And realized, you know, at that point he would have never thought he was where he is. So I think that's also quite a good tool to use every now and then. You know, if you may be feeling stuck, go back and do a little bit of self-reflection and look back and say, you know what, I'm stuck on this now, but
Compared
2 months
to where I was,
2 months ago I wouldn't have even got to this point where I'm at now.
I think we mentioned this 2 or 3 podcasts ago, where the importance of kind of reflecting, you know, and seeing, okay, cool. Don't just be so fixated on the kind of obstacles you're looking at now and you're not being where you want to be, but also going to recognize the progress that you've made.
Yeah, because I think we can get into that like tunnel vision almost of,
absolutely,
you know, not being able to look back, forgetting about all of those obstacles, like you say, you've overcome or pushed through, and you know, multiple times you've persevered at possibly harder tasks and you've been able to get through it. Yeah.
So we use a number of tools in the workplace to kind of to make sure that we persevere and make sure that the discipline is there, to hold each other and ourselves accountable. Is there anything that you think that we can do better in that regard? Because remember I said earlier, I think in a team environment there is a little bit of room for hiding.
Yeah.
Not in a malicious way, but you know,
slip under the radar.
Well, again, it's human nature.
Yeah.
You know, it's human nature to kind of look at just outside of ourselves for the reasons why we didn't achieve collectively what we set out to achieve.
Yeah. So I mean, it's I think it's something that we've touched on before. Is, you know, it's quite a fine line that you go on there, that you don't want to necessarily, you know, call people out and say, hey, you know, you didn't make the deadline, it's all your fault, or whatever it might be. But at the same time, you also do want to sort of bring that accountability almost a bit more to light and say, listen, this is the reason, and maybe dissect that. And yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% sure on the exact way to do it, but sort of dissect why those things went wrong in a little bit more detail than what we can, or what we're doing now is almost go, okay, cool, sweet, moving on. You know, now if we had to maybe dissect those, whether it be missed deadlines or, you know, like you say, things that weren't or didn't go to plan, those type of things, and actually just dissect them a little bit more and do almost like a report afterwards of where the issues lie.
I think it's more important, well, not more important, but I think it's vital that we get comfortable with actually calling each other out.
Yeah.
That's got nothing to do with hierarchy or seniority or whatever, but we each have a responsibility within the team.
Yeah.
I think it's important that we call each other out. What we've got to do is we've got to call each other out in a way that it's not, well, you know, just calling each other out in a negative way.
Yeah.
I think it can be done in a positive way. Understand that, well, you have a responsibility towards the team and towards the bigger team, but say, hey, you didn't do what you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
What are the reasons, and how can I help you, or how can we help you?
Yeah,
it doesn't
for
have
the-
to
for
be in
the
a
next
negative
step,
way.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be in a negative way. Because reality is, if I didn't achieve what I set out to achieve, and it was simply because I didn't feel like doing it, well, then somebody should kick my ass.
Yeah. Yeah, but if there was a
If
legitimate reason.
if there was a legitimate
Yeah.
reason, and well, I didn't have these resources available, or whatever the case may be, then it's our responsibility to step up and say, okay, how can we help?
Yeah. Well,
And
yeah, like you're saying, also then going forward, that like awareness is there that, okay, cool, people will call me out if I don't stand up and speak up about this problem that I'm
Correct.
having before the deadline
Yeah.
or whatever it may be. Yeah.
but also that I will be called out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it was my fault, then I will be held accountable for that.
Yeah.
If it wasn't, if it was a real obstacle, then I know my team's got my back.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's also, you'd rather bring that stuff up sooner than right at the end,
Yeah.
Before crunch time and
Yeah.
go, okay, cool. Things didn't work, but it happened a week ago, then again, it also might be your responsibility, well, probably is your responsibility to speak out like that.
It definitely
Yeah.
is. So it's a great conversation. I think we touched on a number of things, not just the perseverance per se, but just in ending off, have you got a good example of where you've in your own personal or in a team setting where you've seen perseverance really shine through in the recent past?
Yeah, so I mean the obvious one for me, I've got a few examples. Like I said, it's been something that I've been working on a bit, but I think the one that really set it off for me was after I had my injury. I mean, I wasn't in a happy place or anything like that, and it was, especially when something like playing soccer was such a big part of my life at that point, got taken away, and it was all doom and gloom for a while. And then when I started the rehabilitation process of getting it back, up to strength and all of that, it was, it was really eye-opening, because certain days literally had no strength, and it was a struggle, and sometimes you feel like you're making no progress, and through the help of the bio and all of that, you actually do get those progress reports. So it's something that I've been able to take from there now and look back and go, oh shit, 2 weeks ago I wasn't able to push this kind of weight, and now I can. It's just those things just to remind yourself. But I think that whole process from going from being on crutches back to on the field, I think taught me such a big lesson, where at the beginning of it felt like it was probably the worst thing that had happened to me. It was terrible. Everything's in in the bin at the moment. And then, like I say, it's something that I've been able to branch out with the sort of skills and tools that I got from that process into other areas. So
it's great, and I think one of the things that really come out of that is the fact that you had a very clear goal of where you wanted to end up.
100%, yeah.
And that really helps, to have that clear goal or that mission, whether that's a personal thing or a work thing. Thanks for a great chat.
Yeah, lekker. Thanks, Herman.
See you next week.
Lekker.
Ciao. Huh.